Picture this. You are sitting in a modern coffee shop, desperately trying to tell your friend about your latest existential crisis, while they nod along like a bobblehead doll, scrolling through Instagram, occasionally throwing in a perfectly timed that fools absolutely no one. Welcome to the 21st century, where we have mastered the art of fake listening so thoroughly that we could probably teach a masterclass called How to Look Engaged While Your Brain Takes a Vacation. But here is the plot twist that would make ancient cultures literally roll their eyes at us from beyond the grave. They figured out this whole listening thing thousands of years ago, and they did not need a single notification setting to do it. Today we are diving into the forgotten art of deep listening, a skill so powerful that it could probably solve half the world's problems, if only we could stop multitasking long enough to remember what it actually means to pay attention. Let me blow your mind with some ancient wisdom that makes our modern listening skills look like a toddler's attempt at brain surgery. The Aboriginal people of Australia have practiced something called dadiri for over 65,000 years, which basically makes our entire civilization look like it just learned to walk yesterday. Dadiri is not just listening, it is what happens when listening becomes a superpower. Aboriginal elder Miriam Rose Ungunmer Bauman describes it as inner, deep listening and quiet, still awareness that recognizes the deep spring that is inside us. Imagine if your attention span had the depth and stillness of a mountain lake instead of the frantic energy of a caffeinated squirrel on a sugar rush. But wait, it gets better. The Aboriginal approach to learning was revolutionary in its simplicity. They learned by watching and listening, waiting and then acting, not by asking a million questions like we do today. Picture this. Instead of interrupting every 5 seconds to show how smart you are, you actually let people finish their thoughts. Revolutionary, right? They understood that listening was not just about being polite. It was literally a survival skill. If you missed the directions to the watering hole because you were busy planning your response, you might end up as dinner for something with very large teeth. The Chinese got in on this action too, with their concept of ting, which is basically six-dimensional listening that would make your smartwatch weep with envy. Meanwhile, African cultures developed sikya, which translates to integrated sensing, a way of listening that simultaneously sees, hears, pays attention to, notices, understands, and perceives all at once. It is like having superpowers, except instead of flying or shooting lasers from your eyes, you can actually understand what people are trying to tell you. Not quite as flashy, but infinitely more useful at dinner parties. Here is where it gets really interesting. These ancient cultures understood something that our modern world has completely forgotten. Deep listening was not just about being nice or polite, it was about survival, community building, and passing on knowledge that could literally save lives. Stories were not just entertainment, they were GPS systems that could guide you through hundreds of miles of dangerous terrain. If you are not paying attention during story time, you might take a wrong turn and become an appetizer for the local wildlife. Talk about high-stakes listening. But here's the kicker. Research shows that deep listening can cut conflict resolution time in half. That is right. The simple act of actually understanding what someone is saying before you respond can save you 50% of your arguing time. Think of all the Netflix you could watch with that extra time. Studies involving 18,000 leaders found that only 18% of people frequently mentioned they could be better listeners, which is basically like saying only 18% of people think they could improve at breathing. Meanwhile, 46% prefer giving advice to actually understanding what the problem is, which is like prescribing medicine before diagnosing the disease. Modern neuroscience has caught up to what these ancient cultures knew intuitively. Deep listening literally changes your brain. When you engage in true deep listening, you activate neural pathways associated with empathy, emotional regulation, and cognitive flexibility. It is like CrossFit for your brain, except instead of getting swole muscles, you get the superpower of actually understanding other human beings. Research from the University of Jerusalem found that when people experienced high-quality deep listening, they became less extreme in their views and more able to see multiple perspectives on controversial topics. Imagine if we could resolve political debates by simply listening to each other instead of shouting louder. What a concept. So how do you actually practice this ancient art in our modern world of constant distraction? First, try the 70-30 rule. Listen 70% of the time, talk 30%. This might feel like torture at first, especially if you are used to dominating conversations like a verbal steamroller, but trust the process. Second, use the WAIT acronym. Why am I talking? This simple question can save you from the embarrassment of realizing you have been monologuing about your lunch for 10 minutes while the other person tries to tell you their house is on fire. The echo technique is another game changer. Instead of immediately responding with your own thoughts, reflect back what you heard. When someone says, "I am frustrated with my job," do not immediately launch into your own career woes or offer unsolicited advice. Instead, try. It sounds like you are really frustrated with your current work situation. What specifically is bothering you the most? This simple shift from reactive to reflective listening can transform conversations from competitive monologue marathons into actual human connections. Here is something that will revolutionize your relationships. Listen for emotions, not just facts. Most people are not really sharing information when they talk, they are sharing feelings. When your partner says, "The dishes are still in the sink," they are probably not giving you a geographic update on kitchenware locations. They might be saying, "I feel unheard and unsupported." When your friend complains about their boss for the 15th time, they are not necessarily asking for career advice. They might just need someone to witness their frustration. Learning to hear the emotional subtext is like developing X-ray vision for human communication. The ancient Greeks, who basically invented everything from democracy to theater to overthinking, understood that listening was a sacred act. They did not just hear sounds. They explored the human oral experience deeply, recognizing that how we listen shapes how we understand the world. In a culture that gave us philosophy, they knew that wisdom begins with the ability to truly hear wisdom when it is being shared. Practice what the experts call embodied listening. This means using your whole body, not just your ears. Sit up straight, make eye contact, lean in slightly, and let your posture communicate that this person and this moment matter to you. Put away your phone, close your laptop, and resist the urge to mentally compose your grocery list while someone is pouring their heart out to you. Your body language speaks louder than your words, and right now it might be screaming, "I would rather be literally anywhere else." Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh identified deep listening as one of the 3 roots of lasting relationships, along with mindfulness and loving speech. Think about that. In a world obsessed with communication techniques and relationship hacks, one of the most revered spiritual teachers of our time says the secret sauce is simply learning to listen with your whole being. Not listening to respond, not listening to fix, not listening to judge, but listening to understand. Deep listening also means learning to be comfortable with silence. Ancient cultures were not threatened by silence. They were completely at home in it. They understood that the spaces between words often contain as much meaning as the words themselves. Modern conversations have become like bumper-to-bumper traffic. No space, everyone trying to merge at once, and lots of honking, but nobody getting anywhere. Try leaving some space in your conversations. Let people finish their thoughts completely before you jump in. Count to 3 after they stop talking before you respond. It will feel awkward at first, like wearing shoes on the wrong feet, but this pause allows for deeper thoughts to emerge. Here is a practical exercise that ancient cultures would recognize. Practice listening to the world around you before you try to listen to other people. Aboriginal cultures learned to listen to the land, to the seasons, to the subtle communications of nature. Spend 5 minutes each day just listening to your environment without judgment or the need to categorize every sound. Listen to the hum of your refrigerator, the distant traffic, the birds outside your window. This trains your attention to be present and receptive rather than constantly analyzing and preparing responses. When conflicts arise, Use what researchers call the accurate repetition technique. Before you respond to something that triggered you, repeat back exactly what the other person said and ask if you understood correctly. This simple act can diffuse arguments faster than a fire extinguisher on a birthday candle, because most fights are not really about the surface issue, they are about feeling unheard and misunderstood. The transformation that happens when people feel truly heard is nothing short of magical. Research shows that deep listening can improve relationships, reduce misunderstandings, enhance empathy, and foster personal growth. When someone experiences being deeply listened to, they often become more thoughtful, more creative, and more willing to listen to others in return. It is like emotional contagion, except instead of spreading anxiety or anger, you are spreading understanding and connection. Deep listening is not passive. It is one of the most active things you can do. It requires you to set aside your own agenda, your own need to be right or clever or helpful, and simply create space for another human being to be fully themselves in your presence. Ancient cultures understood that this kind of attention is a gift more valuable than gold, because it validates the fundamental human need to be seen, heard, and understood. So here is your challenge. For the next week, try to become an archaeological expedition into the lost art of deep listening. Pick one conversation each day where you commit to listening like your ancestors did, like your life depends on truly understanding what the other person is trying to communicate. Listen not just to their words, but to their feelings, their values, their hopes, and their fears. Listen with your whole body, your full attention, and your open heart. Watch what happens when you stop treating conversations like competitive sports and start treating them like collaborative art projects. Notice how people respond when they feel truly heard instead of just waited upon while you formulate your response. Pay attention to how your own stress levels drop when you are not constantly performing or defending or trying to impress, but simply being present with another human being. The ancient cultures knew something we have forgotten. Deep listening is not just a communication skill, it is a way of honoring the sacred humanity in each person we encounter. In a world that feels increasingly divided and disconnected, maybe the path forward is not more talking, but more listening. Maybe the revolution we need is not louder voices, but more open ears. Maybe the superpower we are all searching for has been hiding in plain sight all along. The simple, profound, transformative act of truly hearing each other. What ancient listening wisdom resonates most with you, and how might you start practicing this forgotten art in your own daily conversations? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and do not forget to subscribe to XQ for more brilliantly simple explanations that make ancient wisdom hilariously relevant to your modern life. Because if we can learn to listen like our ancestors, maybe we can finally start communicating like the evolved humans we pretend to be on social media.